Hi, I'm Andrea Deck. I'm really excited that everyone is here. I am the new Senior Program Officer for SRE Network, and we are really excited to see you here in this room and for what the impact of these funds for the fall open process will be able to make. We're just going to give you a quick overview in the next slide of the agenda for this meeting, which is basically what is SRE, what is our grant making philosophy and history, a little bit about the grants, the open grants process this fall, and then a Q&A. And to kick that off, I'm really excited to introduce our CEO, Alana, to give us a little sense of what is SRE.
Hey everyone, welcome. Very excited to see you all and to be with you today. So SRE Network, we launched back in 2018. So we recently celebrated our 5-year anniversary in March and celebrated with a number of you at our most recent convening. And SRE launched to address gender-based harassment and discrimination and to focus on creating safe, respectful workplaces and communal spaces for all. So that's the focus of our work. Our grant making strategy, our community investments has been a key part of that. We've distributed over 5 million in grants over 5 years, but that's not all we do. We also have our network membership. Many of you are, or all of you, if you're on this call, are network members. And that's a really key way for you to learn from each other through peer learning, sharing best practices, coming to our trainings where we introduce you to expert practitioners in key areas that you're working on as organizations. So we have now 165 network members. Oh, I think we've got someone that needs to be muted. So 165 members and continuing to grow. Something that I am most proud of in terms of this work is organizational professionals like yourselves that are sticking with it. This is hard work and it takes time. It takes many iterations and evolves over time. And so we're really excited about this grant opportunity, which Andrea will talk further about as an opportunity for you to get the resources that you need to do that internal SRE culture change work. So I will turn it back over to Andrea.
Great, thank you so much, Alana. We just want to give you a quick vision of our community investment grant making philosophy. You'll hear a lot of these words from us. I'm happy to talk a lot more in this call about what exactly we mean when we're saying these things. But the vision for, I'm just going to read the screen, which says the vision for our community investments is to deeply invest in creating cultural shifts and accountability through investing time, expertise, and resources in catalyzing community-wide change around creating safety, respect, and equity for all. I promise that's the only screen I'm going to read directly from, but I do want to make sure that you're all hearing from us that that is one of the most important parts of our grant making philosophy. And to the next slide, a little bit about where we've been. This is a little bit more about that in particular. All of this information is available on our website and is in the RFP. Just another look at some of the same things that I was saying around the fact that our grant making process is representative of our values and also one of the best ways that we build relationships and further this work. And we're really excited to be in this process together. In particular, this grant making experience, this fall open grant cycle is around capacity building, internal capacity building, which we will talk about more exactly what I mean when I say that. There are 3 grant pools that are available here at SRE at different times of the year, including field building, capacity building, and strategic granting. In our next slide, you can also see that we've invested nearly 5.5 million in community investments thus far. And in the next slide, you can also see just a little bit of where we've come from, why did this sort of develop into these particular spaces, starting with rapid response grants in 2018 and how we've grown from there. We were very excited about many of you we know are grantees and have been a part of this process before, and we're really excited to see you back in the room. And we really feel like this has been a key lever in moving the needle in these spaces, and we're excited to open this new cycle and continue to move forward. With our next slide, this process in particular is designed to provide financial support and technical assistance for internal capacity building. There's a lot of ways in which I'm going to tell you exactly what that means, but in a nutshell, in one sentence, that is really what we're looking for with this particular grant cycle. We offer grants, as I said, in 3 different spaces, but this particular grant cycle is just for internal capacity building of Jewish organizations in these 3 spaces. And with the next slide, a little bit about the grant cycle. So particularly, we are anticipating 5 to 8 grants will receive an average of about $50,000 for 1 to 2 years. We're happy to consider both smaller and larger requests, not in terms of timing. We are only looking for 1 to 2 year grant requests at this time. We understand that there are lots of really big projects out there in this work, and at this moment, we are hoping to fund as many organizations as possible. You might notice that there are a lot of people in this room today. And so we believe that requests substantially larger than 50,000 are less likely to be funded in full. We are also hoping that these will be, I hope it is not the beginning of the work, and I hope it is also not the end of the work. We're hoping to be a part of your journey and your organization's journey towards safer, more respectful, and more equitable workplaces. One of the things to note about this is that you must be a current network member and have maintained membership in good standing for at least 6 months. If there is any reason why that is a flag for you, either you are not currently a member or there has been some process, fiscal sponsors, relationships, whatever, please reach out to me. We are happy to talk about individual cases, but in general, you must be a network member. Next slide, please. In particular, what is an SRE network membership? And for that, I'd love to introduce Samantha.
Hi, everyone. It's so lovely to see you all today. I'm Samantha Weil. I am the Senior Community Manager at SRE Network, and I'm excited to dive in a little bit more into what membership means. Our community investment work and funding is just one of the ways that we support our members across the field. Julian, if you can go to the next slide. So who are our members? Our members are committed to 3 things: being on a journey towards implementing the SRE network standards, which are really a roadmap for how to become a more safe, respectful, and equitable workplace, assessing their progress on that journey each year to renew membership and to initially join. Organizations complete the standard self-assessment to measure what they've accomplished and the further room for growth in the year ahead. And then to participate in the network and be part of our learning community, really identifying that the work of SRE is hard and complex. And so we don't want anyone to be doing this work alone. We are stronger when we do it in community, when we share best practices, when we support each other, when we learn from each other. We don't have to recreate the wheel. And so that's a really key way in which we are supporting each other in this journey. I also want to call attention to the fact that by being a member, we're helping with a larger cultural shift and sending a strong message that your organization is committed to providing safe, respectful, and equitable workplaces and communal spaces for all. And as more and more Jewish organizations publicly send this strong message, we're really sending the message that the Jewish communal landscape has this commitment. So as I mentioned before, we approach membership from a holistic standpoint and want to provide many services and benefits to support you in this journey. Funding is a piece of that. And by being a member, we know that you are on a larger journey, and funding is once again a piece of the work that you're doing. And there is more long-term commitment that you've had. Julian, if you can go to the next slide, I just want to kind of high level mention some of the services so that if you're not already taking advantage of all that we offer, hopefully as you think about your next steps and your grant application, you're also thinking about the other ways in which you can access support from SRE Network. So we mentioned the standards, which is a great learning tool and roadmap. We also have our biannual learning programs where there are trainings offered to develop skills and knowledge. We also have our resource library that has the past training recording, guides, toolkits, checklists, amazing resources that directly are actionable with the work that you're doing. This grant is only eligible for members. And so we have these exclusive opportunities. And then there's also kind of the opportunities for one-on-one support, whether that's from a peer in the network that you're connected to or from the SRE network team. And you're going to hear, I think, different mentions today that the strategic plan is forthcoming. And when we roll that out in September, you'll see that we are also in the coming years going to be expanding the benefits and services for how we support each of you as our members. A quick plug, you're the first to hear that tomorrow we will be sending out a membership support survey. It's really important to us that we continue to center the needs and the interests of our members and hear from you about what support you need, what topics you need further resources, training, et cetera on. And since all of you are so engaged in your SRE work, we would really appreciate if you take a few minutes and complete that survey so we can continue to serve your needs in all of the work that we're doing. Andrea, that is all I have, so back to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Samantha. It is very exciting to be a part of this network with you. I'm now going to move into the dry, on the ground answers to many questions that you have. I know that there's going to be a lot of information before we launch in. I want to make sure that everyone knows that all of this is available on the website. I'm going to breeze through some of these pieces. If you have additional questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. There will be a lot of time for question and answer at the end. And if we don't get to something today, I will be sharing how to get in touch with me and how to have a meeting with me afterwards, but know that that is coming up. Just a few dates to keep in mind is that we released this RFP on August 8th. We are now at the Grantseekers workshop. Welcome. Until September 29th, we will be accepting proposals. And on September 29th at, I believe it is 5 p.m. Eastern, it says officially on the portal, don't worry, we will be accepting letters of intent. We're very excited to see those. The week of October 31st, we are expecting to have a notification of status. There's a lot more information about all of these pieces and what that means in the RFP, just to make sure that everyone is clear about all of these steps. If you move to the second round, it requires an interview with one of our grant review committee members, one or two of them, and some additional paperwork will be required at that time. I'm happy to talk more about that. Those meetings will happen between November 7th and 18th. In early December, we're anticipating having final notifications out. There is some grant paperwork to sign, and grants will begin both through grant periods and with the first disbursement in January of 2024, which will begin your grant period of 1 to 2 years. As such, maybe the most important thing here is that therefore work should not be scheduled to begin until the grant period begins in January of 2024. And they should be completed within the grant period. We realize that this work is definitely ongoing, but we are looking for this particular project to include discrete projects and discrete time periods. And in the next slide, I just want to start out by saying that this year we're doing a lot of new things. One of those new things is that we're using the WordForce portal, which will be in the chat momentarily. We understand that with new technology, things can be a little weird. One of the best things about it is that you can log back in and edit and make decisions, and multiple people from your organization can have eyes on it until the moment that you click submit. Hopefully that will be super easy and everything will be wonderful. If you're particularly having technical issues, please reach out to myself or Julianne and we will share all of our information in the bottom. We've also found that the help feature at a WordForce is particularly useful. So if you're having tech issues, let's try to get those sorted, and we love to know that they're happening. And with the next slide, what are some examples of what we're talking about internal capacity building? Internal capacity building means, what am I doing in my own organization to do good in this particular way? And maybe it means hiring policies. Maybe that means working with HR around salary bands. Maybe it means responding to complaints and creating a system, policy, those sorts of things. We're really excited to see. These are just a very broad example of project topics. In the next screen, you'll see a few more of those. You could also do trainings, things like, these are just some that are offered in our community by trainers that that we have worked with before and we're excited to see again. DEI training, what does it look like to do hiring? All sorts of trainings are available in the safety, respect, and equity space, and we're really excited to include many of those. As you know, and I hope you know, this list is not exhaustive, and there's a lot of things out there that we can discuss. We're happy to hear all of your ideas. There's also a trainer list that will be shared shortly, and it is definitely inclusive of people that we have worked with, and the list is much greater. We are not saying in any means this is the end all be all, but it's a few people that we have worked with and really respect in the community who do some of these trainings and offer consultancy services. If you have a different trainer, a different project, something of that nature, we would love to we'd love to hear it. Additionally, they can of course cover multiple topics. And with the next screen, some of the things that would not be successful in this round include training the trainer models and curriculum development. We do offer a field building grant cycle in the spring, and that is not particularly what we're looking for when we're talking about internal capacity building. We are looking for your organization helping itself build itself up in these ways, and we are not necessarily looking for the field to change entirely with this work. We are hoping with individual change in all of our organizations, the field will be lifted, but this is really about individual organizations doing work within their own organization. As such, we are so excited to also hear about your train the trainer models and your curriculum development for the spring cycle. If that is something that is on your mind, we would love to be in contact about it. Please don't hesitate to reach out. With the next screen, this is a very basic outline of what I'm looking for. All of this information is available on the RFP again. Okay. But in general, this is, if you're not silenced, please do so. That would be awesome. This is what we're looking for. I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of these questions in a moment, but this is what is currently on the RFP. I'm going to say again also, it should not exceed 3 pages. We are looking for a very basic outline of what this work is, and we'll start going through the questions now, starting with the next screen. So let's talk about some of those questions specifically and some of the things we might be looking for. We ask, what are your needs and how did you identify them? Have you done an assessment? If there's a gap that you are identifying, a need for DEI training, HR policies, a sexual harassment policy, something of that nature, how do you know? And please share it with us. We would love to see that you've done a leading edge survey and are starting to think about those pieces, that you have seen changes in the community and need your organization to move in that direction. We're excited to see all sorts of reasons. We would prefer if these were relatively recent. And when I mean relatively recent, COVID changed a lot of things in our working environment. So just to keep in mind that we're looking for current needs in your organization that are reflective of your current working status. On to the next one. We ask a lot about goals and measurement. It is important to us that you set goals that will be assessed. I realize that was a very vague statement, which seems like exactly what I'm asking, and that's correct. We know that there are so many ways in which you can evaluate this work. You can do surveys, you can do formal evaluation with an external company. You can, if you're working directly with clients, you can ask the clients, you can ask your internal staff. There are so many ways to measure success, both with outputs and outcomes. How often will you do that measurement? We're excited for you to be thinking through this project and sharing that information with us. If you'd like to think it through with me, I'm also happy to do so. But it is important that those goals will be the ones that you will be reporting to us if it's a 2-year grant with both your interim and your final. So these will be things that will come up again and again, and we will ask how you are evaluating them as time goes on, which is why we make sure that you at least have a plan in place. If you don't have a plan in place or are not sure how to measure some of the things that you're looking for, that's a great question. to bring to your meeting with me. And there's also a number of experts in the field that I would love to put you in touch with. I also know that many of you might be using a third-party trainer to be doing some of this work, a trainer, a consultant, someone of that nature, whether from our list or another, inside the Jewish community or outside. When we ask specifically why you are choosing them and what work you are choosing to do with them, we just want to make sure that we have a good idea about what their scope of work is, and how did you pick them? Have they worked with other organizations that you respect? Have you received recommendations? Have you already talked to them? Is important. We are asking this question not to say it is required in any way to work with a third-party trainer or a consultant. We're trying to say, if you are, tell us about them. Tell us about why you picked them, why they're a good fit for your organization, and what conversations you've already had on this topic. So we know that when the grant period starts, you'll be ready to run. To the next screen. This is a good question about how do we evaluate? So in particular, this cycle will be evaluated by a grants review committee who is also available on the website if you would like to see who's on it, as well as myself and other professionals on our team to make sure that we are doing the best due diligence we can. As such, we're going to ask these questions of ourselves, and these will be the scoring criteria that we will be using. You'll notice that we ask, is safety, respect, and equity central to this work? Is there a need that you have assessed and shown us how this will fill that gap? What impact is being made? You'll notice at the end of that sentence, there's a question about scale, scope, or scalability. The difference in those is it your entire organization that we are assisting? It is both size or ability to do, again, in other organizations. It's not required that it could be something that could be easily done in similar organizations, but it's an interesting question to us of, are you doing something you've also seen done in another place and saw change their culture, be more successful? We would love to hear how that is impacting your decision making and see how it could change the field as a whole. We are looking for organizations who are excited about this. We do ask questions about who is going to be leading this effort and who is on board with this effort. And the Grants Review Committee is committed to organizations who are committed to this work. We are excited to see leadership, staff and board leadership that are excited about these projects. There's also a question about viability. Do we feel that we would like you to show us that the organization is able to take on this project and to do this work effectively and make these changes that you are proposing to do in this upcoming grant cycle. We're also looking for organizations that will measure this. This work is often difficult to measure. It's one of the reasons that this is a part that I've both brought up already and is a part of the LOI, and we're asking as a part of our evaluation criteria. There are many ways, as I've said, to measure success, and we want to make sure that you are that you're thinking about it as you go, that these dollars are showing a return on investment, and that your organization's time and effort is also showing a return on investment. Next screen. The very last thing, which I think I've mentioned a few times, is that you are indeed required to meet with me. If you are including a third-party consultant, we are requiring that you at least speak to them before you apply. There's a few reasons for both of those. In general, we are hopeful that all of your proposals are competitive, that they are answering the questions that we are asking. We are so excited to see the plethora of ideas and excitement in the community, as we've seen by so many people here today. And we would like to make sure that all of your letters of intent are reflective of the work that you're able to do. I am so excited to meet with you and hear your great ideas, to read a draft, to answer questions, to talk through what a possible scope of work could be. I'm here to be your advocate in those spaces, and also it is a requirement. You can meet with me up to like 2 days before, probably actually the day of. I'm happy to, the easiest way to schedule time with me is to email me directly. Sorry, I was like, what is my new email? Which is andrea@srenetwork.org, and it will be shared in the chat. I saw there's also a clarifying question about your trainer and consultant, which hopefully Alana answered. If there's additional questions about it, happy to answer that as well. I have not looked at the chat, but I believe it is now time for question and answers. So if we could go ahead and close this, I do want to say thank you so much. And I'm now going to open for questions, but I'm first going to look at the chat because I saw some things come in and I want to make sure that I'm answering those, including will I be sending out PowerPoint? Absolutely. And the recording, also true. Hopefully our RFP link is now working. Great. And now it's open for questions. I would love to, if you want to go ahead and get off of mute, if there are a lot of them, we will facilitate it as we go. Great. I received a question about if we're still brainstorming speakers, which sounds great. In general, the question around figuring out who it's going to be beforehand is a little bit around pricing and scope of work and making sure that you are confident moving forward that the budget will cover everything that you are anticipating it will. We are welcoming whatever stage you are in that conversation. If it winds up that there is a gap or that we cannot follow through with those, we will be able to deal with that on an individual basis. Great. Jenny, go ahead.
I am getting the feeling that I know what the answer to this question will be, but we were wondering at JWA if hiring a part-time staff person for a temporary position would be considered capacity building. In particular, we've been thinking a lot about wanting to do a fellowship program, a writing fellowship program for Jewish women of color. And we would want to hire a part-time staff person of color to run that for us, and wondering if that's considered capacity building. It's not like policy or internal trainings, but it would be building the staff capacity.
It's a great question. I do want to make sure that I know all the auspices of your particular situation before I say very clearly one direction or another. In general, there is no reason that a part-time or any staff capacity during this grant period could not be considered. I think that would be reasonable, or the same way that you would use a consultant or part-time staff in that time is definitely reasonable. I think there is I have some questions about some of the things you just said about whether or not it's internal capacity building. In general, we want to make sure that the very specific question around, is this a discrete project? Because increasing staff capacity would be great, but if we are only doing it for a year as a part of this grant capacity, would we then be decreased? Just a question of sustainability of the project over time.
Right.
Happy to talk about that, but there's no reason that it wouldn't be,
okay,
that it could not be competitive.
So if we had a plan in place for sort of then leveraging that into something more permanent, ideally, which is what we would want, obviously, to do, that wouldn't necessarily be like out of the question.
Yeah,
okay,
happy to talk through that.
We will schedule a time to talk more about it with you.
Great. I'm just going to call on folks as Zoom tells me. So Whitney Weathers, I believe you're next up.
Yeah, hi, Whitney Weathers from Upstart. I'm the Managing Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Justice. I believe we have done this grant before, but transparently, the person who would have been over it is gone. So my question is around like, how do we access if we've done this before? Because literally that team doesn't exist anymore. You know, I could schedule a call, but I was just wondering if like, if I could just find, you know.
Yes, the way that we've processed this before, that is unfortunately not the case. So we would have to get it for you on an individual basis. future reference, that will be different. It will be magical with this new award force, hopefully. But that is not today. But we're happy to pull anything we have. Probably the easiest and fastest way to do that is to reach out to myself and Julian, who will put his information in the chat. Yeah, thank you. Alyssa, you're next up.
Hi, thank you, Alyssa, she, her from Moisha House. I had two questions related to the session that we'll have with you all. So one, if we're bringing in a consultant or we're planning to bring in a consultant or a facilitator of sorts, would you expect them to be on that call as well?
I am not expecting them to be on that call.
Okay. And then the second question is, at our organization, we have a team of grant writers that work on this. So like I would be directing, the content, but we have people who are supporting the efforts. Are you hoping that they would also be on the call in terms of scheduling, or is just me sufficient?
That is totally up to you. I'm very happy to talk to anyone who you feel would benefit from a meeting with me. I'm also happy to make multiple meetings and be as flexible with my time as I possibly can.
Thank you.
Of course. Barb, you're next.
Hi, I have a question about timing. For this grant, does it matter if you do a 1 or a 2 year grant? And especially if you're thinking about then going towards the field building grant, like, does it matter or?
Such a good question. There are some very specifics about this in the FAQ document, which I will also have Julian or Samantha drop in the chat. The answer is no. So the field building and internal capacity, I want to make sure I'm saying this as clearly as possible. The field building and internal capacity building grants are very separate, and we're considering them separate buckets. So you cannot hold 2 field building grants at the same time, and you cannot hold 2 internal capacity building grants at the same time, but you could hold both. That information will be shared with the committee just so everyone is aware of what's going on, but just as an FYI, to the committee, and it will not be a part of that decision-making process at this time. Did that answer that question? Great.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yes,
okay.
exactly.
Great.
Yeah, thank
If
you.
you particularly have a grant and you're trying to figure out whether or not you would be eligible for this, there is a very concise on the FAQ document. Like if you have a fiscal year 2021 grant that's 2 years, et cetera, all of that is available in the FAQ document. I also realized that you asked a question about 1 or 2 year grants. It's really up to you of what best suits your needs. We are anticipating not giving larger grants than 50,000 in total. And whether that's a 1 or 2 year grant period, that's up to your organization. Karen, you're next. You are also muted.
Sorry about that.
All good.
I had a budget question. It says around indirect costs that to refer to SRE about policy. Is that something we should discuss with you during our conversation? Okay, great.
That'd be great.
And then one other question I had was around the section around describing our organizational needs. Are you hoping for us to kind of focus in on just the particular need that this particular solution is addressing and not kind of all of our respect and equity needs? Okay, great.
Yes, please. I do in time probably want to hear more about your overall respect or equity needs, but in this particular LOI, that's what we're looking for.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Other questions? I answered everything. Julia, go ahead.
Hi, Andrea. Thank you so much. This has been incredibly helpful. I just wanted to ask, at one point in the PowerPoint presentation, you went over the fact that the demonstration of need can be as informal as cumulative conversations in the workplace. Does that have any impact on the success of the application in terms of concretely demonstrating the need? Is there more weight given to those that have conducted focus groups and staff surveys with a consultant already? Or
we believe that both qualitative and quantitative data in that space is important in terms of if you've been having multiple conversations on the same topic about culture change, that seems like a very reasonable way to have reached the conclusion that there's a gap or a need to be filled. That
Thank you.
as informal as it needs to be, but we would like to share a little bit. We would love to see if you would share a little bit of how those conversations, like what type of conversations were had. Were you talking to internal staff? Were you talking to board members, community members? Like just a little bit of information about it would be helpful for the committee, I believe.
Thank you so much. That's very helpful.
Of course.